Hello everyone, welcome to another geography lesson with Miss Withers. We are on to lesson 4 of our rivers topic, current topic we're doing. Sorry if you can hear a whirring in the background while I'm recording this. It's just my fan. It's very hot today, so I have to have the fan on in the room while I'm doing this, but I'm sorry if you can hear it in the background, but hopefully it doesn't cause too much interruption. Same routine as always this week. We've got a video lesson and we've got the quiz to do afterwards. If you could please submit your work on a Word document or a PowerPoint to either Teams or to me on email, and then I can mark down that you've done the work. And please remember to complete the quiz afterwards. That's the all important bit, because that's how we gauge how well you've taken on the information from the lesson. If you've missed any quizzes over the last few weeks, please email me and I can send you the links to the older ones if you want to catch up on those, because there's a few people that have done that in the last few days, which is lovely to see, and then I can record the new scores as well. Just another reminder that I can also change the settings on the quizzes so that you can do the quiz more than once, which I do on most of them every week. So if you do get a score and you're not too impressed with it, you can always do the quiz again and try and get a higher score. And I do see that when I'm recording them, if you've attempted it a few times, which is great to see, because then I know you want to do better, which is lovely to see as well. Okay, so we're looking at how rain reaches rivers again this week. It's kind of part 2 of the lesson we did last week. So looking at that in a bit more depth, looking at the water cycle in a bit more depth, and looking at how that all leads to rivers and the kind of system of rivers and how they drain out. Okay, so task 1, we've got a what happens next. Okay, so I've got a picture underneath and what impact will this have on people. So have a look at that image for me of the heavy rainfall. Just here. Okay, and just tell me, what do you think will happen next? Why do you think it will happen, and what impact will it have on people? And write that down for me. Okay, so pause me here for task 1. Okay, moving on to the next task. So first of all, just looking through a few things, we are looking at the features of a drainage basin today. So that might be a new term that people have come across. Drainage basin might not be something you've heard of before. Essentially, a drainage basin is a system of smaller rivers leading to a large river that will drain a certain area of land, and by drain I mean that's where all the water leads to. That's how the water drains out of that area. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. We're going to have a look at some keywords relating to drainage basins and rivers. We're going to see if we can describe what a drainage basin is, and we're going to have a look at some diagrams of a drainage basin, see if we can label the features. This is a little bit of a shorter lesson, which a few of you will be very happy to know, because I know a lot of you have spent so much time doing your geography work over the last few weeks, which is really impressive, and I love to see how much effort you've put in, and I make sure to give those people house points. But I do think that as well as balancing all your other work, it can be very difficult, so I've made this lesson a bit shorter, a bit easier to do, so you can have a quick geography lesson this week, and maybe if you need to spend some more time on another subject, that's fine, you can move on to that. Okay, because there's always extra things you can do for geography if you want to just spend more time on that too. There's always things on YouTube, on BBC Bite Size that you can be doing too, but I'm not making you do any of that. That's only if you want to. So this is a shorter lesson this week, so you can catch up on anything else or just give yourselves a little break. Okay, so looking back at our last few lessons, we've looked at the water cycle in depth, and we've had a look at how rain reaches rivers briefly. Okay, we're going to build on that a little bit more this week, and we're going to look at more how water reaches rivers again in more detail. So we're looking at that whole thing we looked at last week with the inputs, the outputs, the storage and the flows. We're going to look at that in a bit more detail, have a look at the whole system of how water reaches rivers. Okay, so just have a think back to those lessons. Remember all the key terms we've looked at all the systems we've looked at, and that will link into this lesson. So what is a drainage basin? Okay, so a river drainage basin is a catchment area. Catchment area just meaning a surrounding area. So say for instance, the Bicester School's catchment area is Bicester, the small area around Bicester, maybe Ambrosden, Arncott and some of those smaller villages as well. Okay, so a catchment area is an area around a certain thing. So a catchment area of land drained by a river. So you will always have one main river running through the middle, okay, and then you'll have smaller rivers that join that river over the course of the river. Okay, so catchment area of land drained by a river. So in simpler terms, it's the area around a river. All small rivers and any rainwater will all flow into the largest river in the catchment area. Okay. Okay, so as rain falls on that surrounding land, it will always drain into either these smaller rivers and then into the big river, or directly into the larger river. Okay, so that's a drainage basin. There's a few key terms we're going to have a look at. So a confluence, which we've got here, is an area where two rivers meet. Okay, so if you've got a smaller river joining a larger river, that's the area those two rivers meet. Your main river channel is the channel of the larger river. Your tributary is a smaller river that joins the larger river. The source of the river is the start. The watershed is the area that is drained by those rivers. Anything outside of the watershed will not flow into that drainage basin. Okay, so your watershed is essentially the edge, the boundary of your drainage basin. Okay, we're going to do a little matching exercise to get those key terms in your heads in a minute, but I'm just showing you them now. Okay, so a little bit of reading. A river drainage basin is a catchment area of land drained by the river, which we've just said. It's surrounded by a watershed, which is the edge of the surrounding highland that separates different drainage basins. Okay, so there are lots of different drainage basins, and they are all separated by their watershed, so their edge, their boundary of the drainage basin. There is a source up in the highland, which is a starting point of a river. So a source where a river starts, it's always up high. It's always in a mountain, in a hill. It's always on higher land, because a river always flows from high to low. As the river flows downstream, many tributaries, which are smaller streams, will flow into the main channel, forming a confluence. Okay, so tributaries, the smaller streams, as they start to join that larger river, the point where they meet is called a confluence. The river will flow downstream until it meets the sea at the mouth. Okay, the mouth of the river is where it meets the sea. So a river, say if this is a river here, this bad drawing I'm about to do, it will always start up high, flow downwards, and then where it meets here, that's the mouth. So you've got mouth and source. Okay, source the start, mouth at the end. Okay, so that's a drainage basin and what a drainage basin is. Now, it might seem a lot to take in, but once you go through the lesson, I think you'll understand it and be able to picture it a lot better. So, task 2. I want you to match the keywords to their definitions, and you can copy the table out or just write them out, or if you want to just write drainage basin equals, tributary equals, or anything like that. Or if you're doing it on a Word document, you can just do exactly the same, table out and just join them up. But I want you to write them out. Don't just do like 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3 like that. Don't do that, please, because I want you to have those full definitions out. So please write them out and match them up for me, either in a table or as bullet points, or however format you'd prefer. Don't go on to the next slide yet, because the answers are on there and I'm going to run through them in a second, but give it your best shot at matching those up now and pause me here. Okay, so going through the answers for task 2. There we go. So your drainage basin is the catchment area of land drained by a river. A tributary is a smaller river which joins a larger river. A confluence is the point where the tributary meets the larger river. The watershed is the surrounding edge of a drainage basin, and the source is the start point of a river always found on high ground. Okay, so if you didn't get any of those, don't worry too much. Just match up the correct ones now. Make sure you've got the correct ones in, and that we're familiar with those terms. Okay, I'm not expecting you to get them first off, because they are quite tricky to remember, but as you get used to them and as you use them a lot more, you'll start to memorize them much more. Okay, so moving on. So, main features of a drainage basin, task 3. So we've got some images down here which are different features of a drainage basin. What I want you to do is there's a worksheet on the next slide, which I'll also no, actually, I won't attach it to ePraise, because it just saves you guys having to print it or anything like that. But on the next slide, there is a worksheet, and I want there with the different features in it and the descriptions of the different features. Under each feature or above each feature, however you want to lay it out, I just want you to find an image that will be that feature. Okay, so if you're doing it on a Word document or a PowerPoint, you can use Google Images and just find an image of each one, or if you're doing it on paper, try and sketch out one as best as you can. Okay, try and save printing where you can. I don't really want people to be printing the reams and reams of stuff for my lessons. I think it's a waste of paper and probably a waste of your time and your printing ink as well. Okay, so if we can avoid printing, please do. So on the next slide, as I said, you can use Google Images if you're not drawing them, if you're doing it on a Word or PowerPoint, but your sketches don't have to be perfect either if you are drawing them, okay? I'm by no means an art teacher and I don't judge that either. Okay, so here's the sheet. We've got, so I'll put an example in there for you. So we've got watershed, the edge of a highland surrounding a drainage basin. It marks the boundary between two drainage basins, go around the edge in red. So, and then I've got the drainage basin here, and you could just, you don't have to do this, but you just go around the edge there. Okay, then we've got the source, the beginning or start of a river. So you need to find an image that could illustrate the source of a river and pop it in there under the definition or above the definition. If you want to copy this template out completely, that's fine, or if you just want to do it in your own way, that's fine as well. Okay, and just write the word and the definition out and then find an image and pop it underneath, that's fine as well. Okay, whatever is easiest for you, just as long as you've got some images and the definitions of each one. Okay, so pause me here and start task 3. If you need to flick back in the video, that's absolutely fine as well, but I'll leave it on here for you to pause. Okay, so if you're finished, you can move on with me. So task 4, and this is actually one of our last tasks, as I said, it's a nice short and sweet lesson. Label the drainage basin and what are the features 1 to 6. So I've got features 1 to 6 labelled here. 3 and 3 are the same. Okay, I haven't done that accidentally. There is 2 3s, but they're the same one. Just what I want you to do is match the number to whatever one of these is, whatever definition it is. Okay, so if I do one for you, say for 1 here, we've got the start of a river. And what do we know the start of a river is, or where the river begins? It's the source. Okay, so we can write 1 source where a river begins. Okay, or 1 equals source where a river begins. That's all I want you to do, and just match all of them up for me so that I know you can identify which feature of a river it would be on a diagram like that. Okay, short and simple task. Pause me here and start task 4. Okay, moving, and we're on our last task already. Okay, so nice short lesson, as I said, but I want you to just summarise the lesson for me. So what's the most important word that you've learned today, and why have you chosen that one? Okay, so in the exclamation mark, if you can find a similar template like this on Google Images, that's fine. If you want to just make your own using like the shapes on Word or PowerPoint, that's fine as well. Just anything that vaguely resembles a exclamation mark. Write down the most important lesson from today inside the circle part. Okay, so say for instance you could write source or something like that with my mouse writing, which is awful. And inside the exclamation mark, write down why you have chosen that word and what it means. Okay, so if I was to write source, I could write something like because it's the start of a river and where the river journey starts, or something like that. Okay, just whatever you think is the most important thing that you've learned today. It could be drainage basin, could be confluence, it could be anything like that. Okay, so just do the exclamation mark as a summary of today's lesson. And as I said, if you don't understand it fully, you can always look at some videos on YouTube about drainage basins. You can always look at BBC Bite Size for things about drainage basins. If you want some guidance on where you can look, please email me if you want to do any extra, but that is all I'm asking you to do for this week. Okay, so as soon as you finish the exclamation mark, you are done for today. Please make sure you complete the quiz and save your work and send it to me or submit it on Teams. And I will talk to you next week. Thank you very much.